Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Lucie Lederhendler. I'm the Artistic Director here at the AGSM. Thank you for joining us for this artist talk on the last day of the 20th annual member show. We've been trying really hard to celebrate this as a big anniversary, but of course it's pretty recent history. 20 years is still an accomplishment for anything to run consistently in such a community-driven way. But when we celebrate these recent historical events, we also want to make sure that we acknowledge the deep history. So this is the homeland of the Red River Métis. It's also the shared lands of the Cree and the Dakota people, and it's land that's been used by the Anishinaabe and the Anishinaabe since time immemorial. So with that, we thank you all for joining us, and we appreciate the use of this land here in Brandon, Manitoba, Treaty 2 at the Art Gallery of Southwestern Manitoba. But we are not here for me. We are here for our artist members. So welcome Dhairya Vaidya, Curt Shoultz, and Shan Pullen to the talk. And we have two artists joining us from just across the hallway because that's how the cookie crumbled, and Shan joining us from home. Why don't we do a little roundtable first, and you can introduce yourselves for people who don't know you. Why don't we start with Dhairya?
Okay. So I'm Dhairya Vaidya. I'm a third-year student at the Brandon University, and I'm doing the Bachelor of Fine Arts program. I'm majoring in digital media and design. So I'm doing the 2+2 with Assiniboine College, and this is my last term at BU. So next time I'll be joining ACC.
And you've been drawing at a small scale since you were a teenager, correct?
Yes. I started drawing classes in like 4th grade, and then I've been drawing since.
Got the bug. Speaking of the bug, Curt.
The bug. I got the bug. The end of kindergarten, broke my leg, and to stay out of my mom's hair, she gave me lots of paper, and I drew all through the summer, and I started drawing people, and I've been drawing people ever since. I really like them, and I really got the bug, and I draw every day.
Yeah. Shan, you're the newest one to our community, but a year older than I had presumed before. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
My name is Shan. I am a recent graduate of the University of Manitoba's School of Fine Arts. I did my Bachelor of Fine Arts with honors, focusing in photography. I have been in love with art since I was a kid. My mom signed me up for art classes when I was 6 years old, to get me out of the house, to make friends. And I loved it ever since. And I went to that school, all until right before I started university. And then in university, I picked up a camera again and started doing what I do now.
Yeah. So it's great. We have a big combination of digital, analog, kind of experimentation, play, real earnest work as well. And I think it's really, I was going to say it's really embodied in the first work that we're going to see, but in fact, each of you deals with all of those approaches in really, really interesting ways. So let's just dive into the artwork, since this is what we're here to talk about. So this is the member show. This is one shot of one wall with two of Dhairya's pieces here. This one, I don't think I've really talked to you very much about, but it's really fascinating.
Yes, this was actually my favorite piece of this year or the previous year. It was a part of my painting 4 assignment. We had to create a point of view project. It was called a point of view project, and I decided to make a painting of me in a bus. And like everyone who knows me knows that bus is a big part of my life, and like everywhere I go, to work, to university, bus is my mode of transportation. But it's more than a mode of transportation for me. Like I have had so many moments of revelations. I've felt so many emotions in a bus and observing people, just introspecting. And so I decided to um, choose this night scene where, like, if you've traveled in a bus at night, it's exactly how it looks like there's reflection from inside of the bus, and then you can also see the outside at the same time. So that's what I kind of wanted to capture.
You absolutely do. How did you capture it?
I made a Instagram reel way back, like holding the camera in one hand and then the reflection of the window.
Mhm.
And that's why you can see kind of my arm on the side, on the bottom right corner. So I took a screenshot of that, like the whole the shot that I wanted to recreate, and then I edited the composition a little bit to like remove all the things that are not necessary in the scene, and then focusing on the figure and then the lights on the outside of the landscape.
One of my favorite things that you ever said about riding the bus is that it makes you feel cinematic. So when I saw this painting, when I unwrapped this painting, I said, well, that's exactly the nail on the head. Is that, and it's interesting that you pulled it from a moving image still instead of trying to capture a still photograph, which I think would have not approximated actual vision as much, right?
Yes, definitely.
Because the camera has all these things that it does to make things, better.
Exactly. Like there's distortion of the lenses, and also like I wanted to show myself in like a steady state, but also like the environment is moving. Like that's what I feel on a bus. Like I'm just sitting there. There's a million thoughts going in my mind, and I'm thinking about a lot of things, assignments and deadlines and stuff, work and stuff. So like I'm just sitting there thinking about stuff, and then the environment is just moving back.
Yeah, you're making me
miss.
Yeah.
That's also why I changed the environment a little bit. So like the outside of it looks like there's rain and like mist and stuff, and I added a little bit of light, and then the signal, like the red light and stuff. I wanted to go for a moody kind of a blue, like a color palette. So I think it worked out well.
Yeah, you're making me miss living on the living in the East, where you could take greyhounds for hours and hours. It was the best thinking for sure. But speaking of kind of a point of view approach, it's another piece that you included. Once again, trying to capture something more like real vision, right?
Yes. So this one is my second favorite again, and it's very personal to me. Basically, like it's referencing a specific person in my life. Her name is Hina. She's my best friend from India, and we lived in the same society. So we used to meet every day, go for morning walks, and like now that I'm here, I wanted to like kind of do something for her. Like when I was going to come to Canada, she gifted me a lot of things, and I did not get her anything, so I kind of felt bad about it. So I wanted to make a painting which references her and like her importance in my life. So the top panel of the painting is painted digitally on my tablet, and then printed out on the MDF board. And then the bottom panel is painted traditionally with the acrylic paints. So this is the first time that I experimented with do like the traditional medium and then the digital medium together in an artwork. And my like the main concept was to show like the medium and the textures as the metaphor for like the technology we use to connect with people who are like far away from us. So basically, like if you see it in a gallery space, you'll notice like the top panel is all smooth and shiny because of the print, and then the bottom panel, because it uses the impasto technique of paint, it has like all the physical texture on it. So so you can feel the texture when you touch it.
Yeah, so for people, because obviously on the computer you can't really, but all those little spots of light are actually shiny peaks of paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like I wanted to make it simple. Like I didn't want to include a lot of elements. So it was just like whenever we used to go for walks, we used to click pictures like every Gen Z, like a typical Gen Z person. I changed the background, the original picture a lot, and what I kept similar was just the feet part of it. So the clothing, the shoes, the sandals, and all.
Is in order to kind of unify the location with this.
Yes. Like basically visually, I wanted the piece to be like one exact same location, but like conceptually, because of the medium, the top one is like an illusion of the texture because it's not like real physical texture that you can feel. It's
Right.
just digitally painted.
Right. So is there a melancholy in this one as well?
I'm sorry.
Are you trying to communicate a sense of melancholy in this one as well?
Kind of like it's just like I want to show, like, give her a message kind of a thing that like you're important in my life. I think about you every day. I miss you every day. And like we talk to each other on calls sometimes because that's the only option we have right now. So yeah, that's the reason I painted one panel with digital painting, and then the bottom one with traditional paint.
Because I want, like, you're obviously trying to treat your digital work with the same like rigor as
Right.
as the acrylic work, but there's something about like it falling short, like digital, which is ironic since you guys are right across the hall, and I could have asked Shannon, we could all be together right now, but I was like, it's easier. But yeah, there is something about like not quite right. Like there's
I definitely feel the same thing. Like because I started with traditional art, and then digital art I've just like learned in the past 2 years or so, and I'm just kind of experimenting with it. It's not like the thing that I do. So like there's always something short of it, and I'm still kind of learning in the learning phase of like using all the software and stuff.
I think it's so commendable that like acknowledging yourself as being in the learning phase, you're saying, and why would I, right? What is it that digital? I'm not trying to fake analog arts. I'm trying to do digital art, and what's the meaning, right? What does it symbolize?
Right. So for me, like ever since I wanted to become an artist, I always wanted to experiment with traditional and digital art. I wanted to be a hybrid artist.
Mm-hmm.
So like this project was a painting 4 project as well, a diptych. We had to create a diptych, and like I just pitched this idea to my instructor, Kevin DeForest, and that like I want to do a digital painting and show it in this kind of a setting, and show this idea around the long distance and the friendship.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from Glenn for you about when you first and how you first got into working digital. So you said you've always been interested, but yeah, when did it actually happen?
Yeah, I think when I shifted to Canada after my first year, I tried experimenting. Like I tried learning Illustrator, Photoshop, and like all these Adobe Creative Cloud applications. And then this one I specifically created on Adobe Fresco. So I think it was 2022 when I just started learning about digital art.
Great. And then your third piece has a bit of a reveal, especially for people who have seen the show in person. So again, installation shot by Doug Derksen. piece called Powerless Confidence. Shall we just show it in its full in order to talk about it?
Yeah, that will be better, I believe.
Okay, so it's actually a triptych that exceeded the size limit for the member show because it is such a full show. So we used just the rightmost piece, but it's actually a triptych. So talk about it.
Yes. This was also assignment for experiments in figure and form class, and this was probably the most challenging one that I've had so far. Basically, we had to create a body as we had to show a body as a political site, and it's really difficult for me like to have a political element or like a religious element into my works. So that was the challenging part for me. My idea for this triptych was to make a commentary on the societal norms around male body. So I decided to make two different bodies. One on the left, which you can see, is an average male body, versus the right. On the right, you can see it's like a stronger physical body. So, and then the middle panel is the hands of the two bodies. The bottom one, of course, is a stronger hand, but it's in a vulnerable state and it's reaching out for help. And then the one with the average body is helping out the stronger one. So basically, what I wanted to show is like the emotional connection and the emotional strength versus the physical strength, and how like the average body that I've shown is like kind of in a power pose, and he looks confident. He's ready to do whatever that the world like challenges, versus the body that is actually physically stronger. It's like in a black dark room, dark space. It's kind of like an inverted pyramid composition showing vulnerability and instability, and it's kind of in a pose where it's vulnerable, and the viewpoint is also like we're looking down on the figure, and so that's what I wanted to express, and that's why I named it Powerless Confidence.
Why do you find it difficult to address political issues in your art? Because you don't want it, you don't want a stance?
I don't exactly know why, but like I haven't been interested in taking like one stance.
Right.
Like it's kind of like a black and white thing, like either it's black or either it's white, but like I'm kind of in a gray region where like I don't like to agree on one thing. Like
Okay.
I guess it can be called being neutralness in like two difference of opinions. But yeah, like ever since I wanted to make art, I wanted to make art about like people, but like not like just humans in general, which like everyone can relate, like not just for a specific group of community or group of nationality or region.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. So just a reminder to everyone watching that you can ask questions through the comment section on Facebook or YouTube. And of course, artists can interrupt whenever they want to. All right, we're moving on to Shan's piece. So for a sense of scale, these two pieces on the left of this wall, I do want to point out again that there was absolutely a, I don't want to say zeitgeist because it's buzzy, but this palette, this auroric palette was really running throughout the entire show, and I think it's so fabulous. And the way that Shan has really reduced it into kind of color itself, but as we zoom in, you'll see that there's also a lot of forms that are happening. So Shan, first, I guess we'll talk about the process of this. What is it?
So the process that I do is with analog photography. So I use mainly 35 millimeter film. For this process specifically, I really wanted to focus on unfocusing the image, especially with this one. It's incredibly abstracted. So I completely blur out my lens and just shoot as if I were documenting the moments, like if I were to put it in a picture book. And then after that, I do a process called souping, where I take the physical film before it's been developed, boil it in different soups or recipes, and then develop it normally. And it causes the layers of the film to blend together to cause these beautiful swirls of color and brings out really interesting texture. In that process as well, a lot of kind of damage happens to the film as well. You can kind of see bits of scratches and stuff, which I leave in, just to show that even unplanned things end up in the final piece.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to say, so I asked you for the scan for this slideshow because it does sometimes look like there's glare on it. I wanted to make sure that it was the actual photo as opposed, because it is behind glass. Mm-hmm. Here it looks like a glare, but here you can see that it's actually this, I don't want to call it an accident because they're intentional accidents. Yeah. And then the partner piece, reconnection.
Yes. Yeah. So this is reconnection. It's a bit more, it's less blurred. It was a moment that I was experiencing at school. It was my final year of my BFA. So I was kind of capturing those moments. And with this one, I actually accidentally captured my own thumbprint on the top, which I think is really fun. With these pieces, I was really focusing on the colors that came out in this specific film stock, which I've been experimenting with experimental film stocks and pushing them into the experimental process and seeing how it reacts.
As much as you are analog, you're using digital scans directly from the slides.
Mm-hmm.
And then are you doing anything on the computer or just deciding what scale you print them at?
I edit them a tiny bit just to get rid of like dust and stuff that would be distracting. But no, I don't edit I would only edit what I would think I would do in the darkroom.
Right.
Because most of my soup prints I do print traditionally in the darkroom, but for some of the more experimental film stocks, the colors just don't come out right in working with the filtering systems of enlargers. And I wanted it to be as true to the colors as possible.
Do you consider these a diptych, or are it's just part of a larger body of work when we look at them installed like this?
I consider them separate, even though they're from the same roll.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because they are part of two different memories,
right?
Even though they're on the same roll.
So it's a beautiful way to phrase it. And your third piece, seen here, second from the right, is corruption. So this is a much larger piece, like probably half again as big. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a piece that I made actually for a graphic design course, again in my final year. We were asked to experiment with the physical and digital. So I was working with building my body of souped pieces. And so I took one of my prints that I was working with and I chopped it up, continued to physically manipulate it like I do with souping, put it back together as a collage. I scanned it, and then in the computer to replicate the idea of corruption. Corruption is in referencing to the physical corruption of the art, because a portion of this was corrupted files where I took out pieces of the code to bring out, it changes the colors and it makes it into a new piece. And then from there, I collaged them once again in Photoshop and started to layer different overlays of color to bring out pieces of texture and colors from the original piece, because this was originally entirely blue. You can kind of see it in the middle, but it's as I continue to work at it, I brought out beautiful pinks and oranges and green, and that's what I was kind of working with. I was trying to focus on the color for this piece.
I wonder, we got into this a little bit earlier, but for the sake of our new viewers, for these things that are close to kind of a pure abstraction, how are you determining if you're done?
For the most part, I determine if they're done when I don't want to touch it anymore. I think this was my third try at doing this piece, and I didn't want to go too far as to completely change the colors, because it can, if I add too many layers, there's a kind of some what I would consider maybe not as attractive colors on the right hand side, like the muddy yellows and greens. Yeah. If I continued to add those layers, those colors would come out, and that's not what I wanted. But I left those in because they're still part of the piece.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So kind of like maximum saturation.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point it gets too mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you have, same thing for the other pieces. If you have an entire roll of blurry, soupy, are you choosing it based on your memory, or are you kind of intuitively? Yeah.
It's a mix of both. So depending on how the shot has turned out, if the shot has been too damaged and you can't really see anything, I usually don't include it. For 35 millimeter, there's 36 shots in a roll on average. I maybe use 5 pictures from one roll of film. So it really, it's subjective, like frame by frame, whether I connect it with the place where I was, or some of my works do feature a bit of portraiture of loved ones and friends. And some of them, like my piece Family, I just really loved the way that the soup affected the film and affected the colors. So.
Right. Yeah. And then I want to ask you, like we discussed with Dhairya, like when did you choose photography as a tack? So I think UFW doesn't major. You kind of have what you're more interested in. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the U of M, it's kind of different than a lot of BFA programs, where it's a completely interdisciplinary degree. Mm-hmm. A lot of other universities, like Brandon University, you choose a major. That's not the case for U of M. So I was kind of able to really experiment with a bunch of different mediums and not completely focus on one, even though I did end up doing that because I fell in love with analog photography. Mm-hmm. And U of M has one of the most advanced color darkrooms in the country. So I really wanted to utilize that space while I had it. Yeah. I picked up a camera for the first time when I was 4 years old by accident. Took a picture of my brother and my father that still is hanging up in my parents' kitchen. And then as I grew up, I kind of like always went back to digital photography, taking pictures of friends. I was that person. I always had a camera in my hand. And then when I got to university in my second year, I was taking photography 1, and I thought it was going to be a digital class. But when I got the syllabus, the first part, I found out that it was entirely analog. And so I talked to my father, who I had only recently found out spent most of his years when he was my age working in camera stores in dark rooms, and he had all of this gear that I was able to use for the class, like the future classes, and I still use his cameras and his lenses to this day for my artworks.
Right. I'm sorry, I blanked because you had a background in sculpture when you started. Was that true?
Yeah, so I went into university thinking I was going to do sculpture or painting because that's what I did before before university and high school. Our art program was pretty balanced, I would say. We did a lot of portraiture and painting. My high school had the privilege of having a kiln, so we did some sculpture with clay. And that's what I did at the after school art school that I was with as well. So that's what I was used to. I was expecting to do sculpture mainly using wood. And then I never actually ended up taking a sculpture class. I went in a completely different direction.
Yeah. I think you worked with Sarah Fuller, correct?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to put a little shout out that we are bringing Sarah Fuller in for a little masterclass in the AGSM's Tragically Underused Darkroom. So if this conversation with Shan and this history of them being so inspired by these processes and these chemicals and this magic that happens, then stay tuned, follow us on everything, and you'll get access to some of that great knowledge as well.
I took most of my analog photography classes with Sarah Fuller. She taught me basically everything that I know. Yeah. She is really a great inspiration. So yeah, I'm very excited that she's coming to our neck of the woods.
It's a long time coming. I met her when Marianne Barkhouse was here. She came down for the opening, and I immediately showed her the dark room. So it's been I think 2 years of conversation, and finally I bit the bullet, and I said this April. So yes, thanks, Shan.
You're welcome.
All right, and now we'll continue our tour. This is an installation view. Your piece, this one here in the center, has been staring at Dhairya's back for the entire exhibition. We'll start here. Racing to save us from the breaking sky.
Huh. It looks different than when you're painting it. So COVID was a year away from the world. Other than online, I was in my day job helping BU faculty get online and do the emergency remote instruction. And at the end of a day filled with digital this and digital that, I was only too happy to sit down and do something physical. And at the same time, I didn't have enough of my usual brain to plan something out, to plot something out. So I did a lot of spilling and dripping and spinning of ink, and I must have done hundreds of pages, large and small, of that kind of thing. And I still have a lot of it. Mm-hmm. But as we've emerged from COVID, I look at those pieces and I go, enjoyable at the time, but they don't carry enough meaning for me. I've always worked in terms of story and what are the human beings that are involved and what are their characters doing and what are those kinds of things doing. So this is one of the earlier attempts to intend some more meaning than simply what was spilled. What was spilled was the dark area at the top and the bright area on the lower right. And so as I studied it and played with it and threw a little more paint on it and took away a little more paint, it emerged to me that it was some kind of a heroic figure riding ahead of something, perhaps a COVID invasion, and trying to fight back and bring up the shield and really fight it with some kind of sparks of light and inoculate us, I guess, in a sense. So the breaking sky is the COVID sky, and the figure is trying to get ahead and do that. And yeah, and I was happy enough with it that I thought this is something I want to put in the members show. It's still a little out of what I do, which is mostly quite intentional and representational, but whatever. I'm trying to broaden my horizons.
I think I would recognize this as a Curt Shoultz, but also because with your collaborations, you still use, like, when you work with Doug Derksen on his canvas photographs, you use a lot of spatter and
spatter is fun.
happenstance.
Spatter is wonderful. It's just so great to see things accidentally happen and go, oh, okay, that has meaning for me. And now I just need to push it a little bit. And part of that is how much do I push it? Where do I push it just enough so that it is what it is, and then stop there, stopping in time.
Well, I mean, this is anticipating this piece, kind of informed me asking Shan as well, about how do you know when something's done, when it's abstract. And it sounds like for you, you're like, as long as it's abstract, it's not done. I have to pull some meaning out of it, right? But
essentially, yeah, it doesn't have enough freight with it. I need some characteristic that suggests that there's human agency involved. And I look at Shan's work with the abstraction and I think, wow, that's great. And it was wonderful she took me back to high school photography, which in my era was all analog. We didn't call it analog because it was just photography. And also in my only year of art school, it was all, go into the darkroom and develop it and play with it. And the photographic images that I kept from that time are the out of focus ones and the kind of weird and mysterious ones. So I guess it's playing with the mystery of what is this, but also a little bit of, let's explain a little bit of it. Maybe the teacher in me is trying to say, here's what I think it's about. So.
Yeah.
It's kind of, sorry to add in my 2 cents. It's kind of, it's fun to see other people's interpretations of an abstract piece, because you're not giving them the whole story, like you were saying.
No, and we bring our own experience from it. So your piece, the big piece, the very colorful piece, Reconnection or Corruption. Corruption speaks to my growing up in a house where a print by Paul Klee of a character hunting fish with a wonderfully abstracted squares. It's a whole series of colorful squares behind it with a figure of almost a Don Quixote figure in a boat stabbing at a giant deep sea fish. That's burned into my young memory, and I can't help but see that in what you've done with much more vivid colors. And there's no suggestion of a figure, but I still have to push that into what I see from your work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I was going to pop it into the comments, but because I totally see that now. And if you grew up staring at that print, then you would absolutely see that in Corruption. We have a question from Glenn for you. How do you balance abstract and realism? I think balance is a good way to phrase
it's wonderful that. To say that. And for me, it's all abstraction, right? Even a realistic painting is still an abstraction. It's still a choice of moment and time and particular colors. And Dhairya's nice bus is an abstraction because he's removed things that weren't essential to it. So for me, the balancing thing is, where is enough meaning conveyed and mystery not destroyed? I want mystery to remain because I that's stickier than explaining everything. But the teacher in me constantly wants to explain everything. So that's my battle. My balancing battle is don't explain everything, just leave some of it. And I don't always win that battle. Explanation wins out more often than mystery.
That's a really good transition to the other piece that you included in the show, which is here on the bottom right. It welcomes people into the exhibition or bids them farewell, depending on the route that you take. Surface work, deeper play. So the little mystery box in this one, I have a few slides that will do the reveal. Do you want to talk about this first?
Yeah, happy to. So I spent 5 or 6 years doing landscapes, painting landscapes, trying to represent especially some profound experiences in Newfoundland, in the Avalon Peninsula, the rocks in the water. And thank you, Glenn. Yeah, mysteries are there, but I also got to get some intention in there. and also in Newfoundland, or also in New Mexico. But as I was working, I was like, okay, this is fascinating. I enjoy the reproduction of the textures and trying to capture the energy that's in water and the ancient energy that's in the rocks, but I'm missing the people. And so I eventually stepped away from the landscape painting and back to more story work, more about character and interactions of characters. And so there's a lot of energy in this. This is one of the paintings I did not get to fully develop, but I did this one in a hurry, and I'm happier with it than some of the things I spent hours and hours on. This was probably 3, 4, 5 hours of painting, just moving quickly and again trying to be satisfied with this is enough. I don't have to render every little dot of water that hit the whatever. So I did that, and as I had it, it's like, okay, it's fine, but I think the world is more than that. And if we're thinking about the world as a social construct, our lives are not just rocks and water. Maybe they are inspired by water, rocks and water, but if we look deeper, it's about, well, let's move on to the next. I gave Lasting Image the difficult challenge of framing this plus the work underneath it so that people could kind of lift it up and see what's underneath. So it's a flip up, really. And so underneath we have a dance party. We have characters, just bizarre made up characters, no reference to reality, just bizarre made up characters having a dance party, moving around and doing things simply and working in orange and white, just an orange marker on white background, and having a good time and making no reference to an existing reality. Just here's some characters I've made up in a situation I've made up, and easy to do, but also closer to my heart.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, and I like you have inverted the expectation of what kind of serious art is about, right? By calling the play the deep part and the oceanscape the shallow part.
I guess so, because I like landscapes. I like looking at them. There's some really terrific landscape painters, but I don't get into them the way I do into a painting that's got people in it. I think about Dhairya's work, and I was thinking about, thank you, Glenn. I was thinking about Edward Hopper, because he was also removing details, and he was people alone at night, and it's evocative, and there's a lot going on in there.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
There's that in it, removing the details. So.
Yeah. And there is something, I feel like this comes up every time that we have specifically a talk about the member show, is that you are really, really stubborn about making sure that there's a lot of joy in your
Stubborn about joy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll accept that. I grew up in an artsy household, and I know a lot of art history, and I've looked at a lot of pictures and a lot of paintings, and I've been most affected by standing in front of actual Van Gogh paintings in the Met in New York, more affected than probably any other work. But it was a melancholy effect, and I feel like a lot of paint is coming out of a place, paintings and artwork is coming out of a place of disturbance, and I don't feel that way about the world. So my work is happy work. I guess it's stubbornly joyful.
I actually have kind of a read on this one specifically, like because it's layered over one another, and it's also called surface work, deeper play. It kind of has a psychological aspect to it for me. Like there's the conscious part of the person or the figure who's in that space, the rocks and the ocean. And then there's the unconscious or the subconscious personality within the person, which is underneath that whole ocean.
Okay, and if I could draw a parallel with that, I mean, I was extremely excited just to see the water hit the
Right.
rocks again and again, as it's been doing for millions of years. It just, that brought me a lot of joy.
Right.
Other people maybe would have seen it more dramatic, like Winslow Homer would have made it, a little more angst and a little more atmosphere. But for me, it's just so exciting. It just energizes me, and I can feel the ions or something. I don't know. Thank you.
And it comes back to that idea of inversion, I think, right? Is that, it's not that, despair is a more important emotion than joy, right?
And yet we have a lot of media and a lot of culture that says the serious person is the more valuable person.
Yeah.
And the serious conversation is the conversation that's going to resolve the issue. And I do not believe that in the classroom or with people. I think it's the playful piece that's going to resolve situations. It's the humor, it's the happiness.
Yeah.
Dancing in the Streets by Barbara, Ehrenreich. She looks at the extinguishment of joy through hundreds and hundreds of years, and how it's slowly, they shut down here, they shut down here, they shut down here, mostly having to do with, let's get ready for the neighbors who are going to show up with weapons, and we have to protect ourselves from them.
Yeah.
So you fools out there dancing and singing, whatever, let's cut down the feast days. There used to be more than a single feast day for every day of the year. And then as we have to drill and march and get ready to be able to fire the guns quickly enough to repel or attack the neighbors, we cut down on the feast days. So, and guess what? You're going to actually have to stay with the Army full time. You can't just come from your home and drill with us today. You're going to have to stay with us full time. And we can't have you being happy, because this is all about serious business. So, and that just, it carries on. And so the serious art is the dramatic art and the dark art and the, anyway,
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm beginning to rant again.
No, that's exactly it. That dark thoughts are serious and light ones aren't. But there's no, that's that's an application that we put on. So that's, I think, why, oops, sorry. Don't go yet. Yeah, and I think once again, you'll have to forgive me for keeping this virtual, but it was just so much easier for me, and we're doing Nuit Blanche, and I didn't have time to do a hybrid thing, but the joy of gathering, right, is something that I think we're all acutely aware of. And so I did say that I wanted to talk a little bit about the function of an annual exhibition like this, of gathering the artwork. I talked a lot about how there's several people who I know only through their art, because they're in the member show every year. Erica Holloway, I'm talking to you, who I've never met, but I feel as though I know them. I look forward to seeing their work, and to see what they've been up to. Right? It's like getting that holiday card every year with the little, I haven't seen you in person for 30 years, but I like to know, how your kids are doing. So the function of these group shows, we have a student, a recent grad, and an emeritus participant who really, really do love just being a part of these things. I don't know. I want to start with Dhairya, who showed up to the gallery almost immediately, implicated yourself, and submitted as soon as you could.
Yes, I think I was the first one to submit a piece application this year. I'm always excited to submit stuff to galleries and whatever shows I can get into, to know what people think about my work, how people view my work, and also to know if what I'm doing is working or not. Also, I feel like these members shows are great opportunity for students to exhibit their art, because there aren't much opportunities, I feel, for students in general.
Or artists in Brandon, I'll just say, or in Westman.
Yeah.
It's pretty limited. Yeah.
The value of community, one of the values of community is to actually share perspectives, right? So you don't have to think alone. I've come to the conclusion after thinking a long time that we reason better together than we do alone.
Yeah.
So for me to get feedback on what I've done or not done in terms of communicating helps me to make a better work than just sitting alone and doing it.
Yeah.
Shan?
Sorry. I'm a new member to the community. I only moved to Brandon a few months ago. So I found while I did have work in the show last year, I wasn't living here yet. My husband was. So I knew that I was planning to move out here after graduation. I knew that having my work in the member show would be an opportunity for me to meet the community here, because if you're not in school, it's harder to meet the community, except for the gallery, which is very much a central space for the creative. So that's why I find the member show really important. The opening for the member show is always such a wonderful experience. Like you said, Curt, like being able to see other people's perspectives, getting more. For me, I got a lot of really good praise, but also a lot of really good feedback on my work that I haven't gotten in the past, because I'm in a new space. So I have a horde of new people and their perspectives to advance my work going forward now that I'm in a new place, right? So
I'll chime in as a exhibition designer, if nothing else, that when you create a work of art, you've created something new, right? Mm-hmm. But it's an exteriorization of yourself, and they need to be in conversation with things too. When I first joined the AGSM, right, it was January 2021, and so we were still shut down most of the time, and then would shut down again. And it was part of my job, not in the job description because that would be froofy, but like every day I would turn on the gallery lights and walk through, because art needs to be seen, right? And I think to Curt's point, thinking better together, the art needs to be in relationship with new things. If it's just in your closet, if it's just on your white wall, if the only way that you can picture it is, on a, in a hollowed gallery on a white, there has to be next to things. And especially like, if we look at, where is it? The colors here are in such amazing dialogue with each other. Like the reverse of this wall, which has the aurora images on it. The kind of the visions of reality, right, are shared and at odds with each other on this wall. And that's crucial, I think.
And as someone fortunate enough to have seen every member show, I get to see, in a sense, the art of things. And in the first few shows, it was very individualistic, and things were coming in from a range of places, but not a range of subjects. There was a limitation, I thought, on subjects, and very few people and figures were showing up in the works. And now there are people and characters running throughout most of these things. So that makes me happy, because that's what I'm looking for in art.
Yeah.
And I've seen it grown in that way. So it just, I feel that now it all feels more meaningful, less just decorative. Sorry, decorative is not a mean word, but it's less decorative and more meaningful, at least to me.
I just you had a little pre-interview about Nuit Blanche, and one of the pre-interview questions was, Nuit Blanche is an international movement. How is Wheat City Nuit Blanche setting itself apart? And I was like, that's such a nefarious question. Like we're part of an international movement, right? Like we think of ourselves as remote, right? Because access is more difficult, because the community is smaller. But it does a disservice to the community to think that there's not a movement here, right? That it's not engaged in this really great dialogue with itself and with the world at large, as people like Dhairya and Shan and yourself, however long ago, Curt, join the community, right? It's a living being. Yeah.
I think like this reminds me of a conversation we had in my survey of contemporary art class with Stacy Kusel, and like we were talking about what makes art, and like if there's no community or no person to see a gallery space, then is it art? Or is it an installation? We were talking specifically about installations and stuff.
Mhm.
So like, is it really art if there's no one to see it?
A tree is still a tree in the forest, but is art still art without a human being to perceive
Exactly.
it? Mm.
There was a book that came out last year, maybe, by Bianca Bosker called Get the Picture, where she's obsessed with like what is this like art world, and she does more of the contemporary art market, but she implicates herself in one of her jobs at a commercial gallery is writing the press releases, and the director jokes that it's always just some version of making the unfamiliar familiar or making the familiar unfamiliar, and it's kind of, you know, it was hard for me to get into the book because they were doing so much making fun of this world that I love so much. But then I was thinking about that, and I was like, you know, that it's true, but it's okay, right? That decontextualize, you know, if you put a tree in an art gallery, then yeah, it becomes art, right? Because it's you look at it differently, and that's what I mean about the relationality between these artworks as well. Even in the foreground, we have tiny little ceramic creatures staring at, you know.
Yes. I was having a good conversation with a student the other day, and she was talking about, well, it's all just social constructs. But
Yeah.
we're social beings, and they're pretty darn important. Social constructs are, some of them are restrictive, but others are enabling. I mean, all of the social constructs we built are tools for us to work together in most cases. Unfortunately, we're working through a tool in the last 20 years that's all about extremes and black and white and do it simple and do it cheap, and that speaks to your point about what you called neutrality, but I called, you know, trying to seek the common ground.
Right.
Yes. As opposed to, well, the social media wants you to declare your like or your dislike or which side are you on, and art gives us a nice common ground to have color and play and talk.
Totally.
Yeah. No, you can put just in front of anything, and it diminishes it. You know, it's just language, but that's what we have. You know, it's just images, but that's what we're working with.
That's what we got.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a great chat. This is almost exactly an hour, and I thank you so much. And I feel like I should say happy anniversary to Curt, especially 20th member show, wrapping up today. Yeah.
20th member show. Joined as a student at the from the brand new university, because it was the only art I was going to get in 1980. So what is that? 45 years. So yeah,
incredible. Yeah.
Happy 45th anniversary. It wasn't even the Art Gallery of Southwestern Manitoba. It was Allied Arts, Brandon.
Yeah. No, we've been through some changes, and we're going to keep changing because it's a living community.
Yep.
All right. Well, I wish you all a wonderful Friday. Thanks everybody for joining us online, especially you, Glenn. Thanks for joining in the conversation. And you have until 5 p.m. today to see the annual member show, and join us for Nuit Blanche tomorrow.
Get down here.
Come here.
Get down here.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.